Lesson 77.
Son, ça.
The main thing we would like you to understand in this lesson concerns the genders of the words sont and ça. The main thing we want to do in this lesson is point out the difference between how these words function in French and how their corresponding words would function in English. And those corresponding words in English are his and her. Okay, so here's the difference between the English and the French. In English, his and her get their gender from the possessor, the person that's possessing the thing. In French, those corresponding words get their gender from the thing being possessed. Okay, this is called agreement. The genders need to agree with one another, regardless of what language it is. But in English, his or her is going to agree with the gender of the person doing the possessing. In French, sont and ça are going to agree with the gender of the noun being possessed. And that, in a nutshell, is the main, most important point we want to get across to you in this particular lesson. Francois, let's think of an example using a masculine noun, like the noun for book, livre.
Yes. So for the book, it is livre, c'est son livre, whoever possesses it.
So the French noun livre, which means book, is a masculine noun. So sont or ça, when those words tell us who's possessing the book, we have to pick the one that agrees with the masculine gender of the word for book, not the gender of the person possessing it. So if a male is possessing the book, it's son livre, his book. And if a female is possessing the book, it's still son livre, her book. So this is a mental adjustment that an English speaker is going to have to make when working with these possessive pronouns. If you're like me, you might be tempted to think, oh, son is masculine. That means a man is possessing it. No, it's the opposite of that. That's how it works in English. In French, son is there because it's agreeing with the masculine gender of the thing being possessed. In this case, the masculine noun, book. So again, this is a mental adjustment you have to make. And I think it's just something you have to get used to with practice. So we have a couple of examples here written into the lesson. Why don't we go through those together? Here's the first example.
La femme a son chat.
So here we have a woman who is a feminine noun possessing a cat, which is a masculine noun. So do we need son or ça? Will it agree with the possessor or the thing being possessed?
The possessive goes with the cat, and the cat is masculine.
So this is a distinct difference between French and English. In English, we would say her cat, and so the word her would tell us the gender of the person possessing the cat. In French, son or ça don't tell you the gender of the person possessing it. In fact, in this sentence, we only know it's a woman because the sentence says it. So in French, you have to know just by context the gender of the person doing the possessing. Now in our next example, we have a man who is a masculine noun possessing a car, which is a feminine noun. So it's just like before, but the genders are switched. Here's the example in French.
L'homme a sa voiture.
So the possessor is masculine, but the thing being possessed is feminine. So do we pick ça or son? We need ça, right?
Because ça has to agree in gender with the thing being possessed, which is the voiture, not with the gender of the possessor, which is a man.
So we crafted these example sentences on purpose with a possessor of one gender and possessing a noun of the opposite gender, just to illustrate the point and to demonstrate that son or ça agrees with the thing being possessed. And these example sentences really aren't very good French. They're probably not things that people would say. They might figure out other ways to say the same thing. We're simply giving you those just for practice and for learning. And that brings us to our last example, which is an example that helps us to understand context within the sentence. If there is context or if there's not enough context to know the gender of the person possessing. Francois, read that last one for us.
La fille est ma sœur, j'ai son chat.
So when you read the second sentence, you're still thinking about the genders that the first sentence talked about. Is in your mind, is that going to give you the context you need?
Yes, because it goes, you say son, it means it belongs to someone, and it is the last someone you talk about.
So in the first sentence, we talk about a girl, someone's sister. So in the second sentence, you know that's who it's talking about.
Yes.
And now that same one, but without any context.
J'ai son chat.
So when you read that sentence, does the cat belong to a male or a female?
You don't know.
So that's a sentence that does not give us any context, and so we don't know the gender of the possessor.
Yes, you have no context. You don't know to whom belonged that cat.
So in our answer key, if we have an exercise like that with no context, we're going to put his/her as the translation for son or sa. Would you say that's a fair way to handle that in the answer key? Because we have to represent it in English somehow.
Oh, yes, sure. Yes, you cannot do another way.